Hello, my friends. This is Dr. Ginny Baro, and welcome back to our series where we are exploring the 21 qualities that leaders must possess in order to lead through these times of complexity and uncertainty. And today I'm going to speak to you about quality number 17, which is vulnerability. This could be a very crunchy subject, and it's one that I'm still work in progress. And one of the reasons for me where talking about vulnerability can get very tender is because as a woman in the workplace for over, at this point, 33 decades, 30 years, you build a certain shell, protection, and armor that you carry around for so many years. And it wasn't until recently, when I say recently, I mean the last maybe 8 years or 10 years, that I've begun to put down this thick shell and this armor that I carried around to protect myself, especially in the workplace. What do I mean by protecting myself? When I went into the workplace as a young 22-year-old, I looked around me. I was in science, so I was in technology, and there weren't a lot of role models for me. My role models were typically my manager was definitely a role model at every different role that I've had so far. And I looked around at looking for other role models to see how I should show up as a leader. And those were the qualities that I appreciated. The ones that I saw that I appreciated were the ones that I took on and that I decided I want to do that when I am a leader. Now, I want you to know that if you're listening to this series, to me, a leader is not only someone who has a title of a leader, but someone who leads in his or her own life. So we are all leaders in our own life. It just so happens that sometimes we happen to have people who report into us, and then we have a leadership title. But when I was that young, impressionable professional graduating from college and starting my career, I learned quickly, I am a quick study, that there was a certain expectation as to how I needed to behave and show up to the workplace professionally. Part of that, of what I learned through in those early years, was that when I show up to work professionally, I keep all my emotions in check. I treat everybody respectfully, which is a really good thing. And I treat others the way that I want to be treated. The golden rule, not a big deal. I also noticed that a lot of the role models that I was emulating didn't bring a lot of vulnerability or transparency or necessarily showed what was going on with them. And today, in today's environment, vulnerability is one of the qualities that will get us to build deeper connections with the people that we are surrounded by, including our teams. So I'm going to give you a few of the benefits of showing up as a leader with vulnerability. So the first thing that we're going to accomplish is we're going to foster more intimacy. We, in our personal relationships, when we are vulnerable and open and share truly how we feel about a situation, it gets us closer to our partner. Now, for that to happen, we need to feel safe. And this is why I emphasize, whether this is in your personal life or professionally, that people perform at their best when they feel safe, when they feel that the person who they're interacting with doesn't have any hidden agendas or who's out there to get them, but rather that person has their back. There's trust between the two people that are interacting. That applies to obviously our personal relationships, where unless we feel safe, we won't show the intimacy because we fear getting hurt or being taken advantage of. And so in many instances, we may hold back from expressing how we really feel in that moment. For example, saying to someone that I love you, or that I really enjoy your company, or that I really look forward to our future together. Those are the kinds of words that a partner loves to hear, right? That the fact that you have them on their mind and that you see yourself building a life with this person that you call your partner. So that intimacy that you can build in your personal relationships, and that so many of us struggle with because of fear, also translates to work, right? How can we be more intimate with our teams? How can we let them know that we care for them, that we have their backs, that we will go to bat for them, that we don't know everything, that even though we're in this situation, we will figure it out together? That is what vulnerability looks like. And as a manager who's leading a team, the larger the team, the more this applies. Maybe this applies to you. When you're leading the team, especially people who are really smart and are experts in their specific areas, you are not going to have the depth of knowledge that they have. That's their job. Your job is to be the visionary and to be the one who empowers them and removes obstacles so that they can do their job to the best of their abilities. And so you may find yourself in situations where you realize that you don't know the depth of what they're discussing. And vulnerability, the way that it would look, is that if you've been asked to make a decision on something that you don't have quite the depth as you experts do, that you connect with each of your experts and that you ask them to help you understand better the situation that is in front of you. So if it happens to be, in the case of me, technology, for example, you have to make a decision as the leader, and you don't really grasp the nuts and bolts of the technical aspect of what's going on, you can ask your experts, tell me more about this. If we go in this direction, how does it impact this, this, and this factor? And then talk to the other one. And if we go in that direction, how does it impact this, this, and that factor? That is vulnerability. Not pretending that you know it all, because we don't know it all. We only know what we know, but there's tons that we don't know that we don't know. And vulnerability is accepting that, and accepting that there's a part of you and many parts of you that aren't necessarily exactly how you want them to be. Maybe you want to be more knowledgeable about a specific area in your role. And it's when you accept it in yourself that you don't have that knowledge, when you're vulnerable with yourself and truthful with yourself, that you then recognize, I need to reach out to someone in this particular area who can support me to gain that knowledge. That's the beauty of embracing the quality of vulnerability. By doing that, you're also going to deepen your compassion for other people. When we are vulnerable and we make these deeper connections and have more intimacy with the people that we're interacting, it enables us to have more empathy toward the situation that they're experiencing. It's going to help us expand our connections and in our relationships. I don't know about you, but after you've had an interaction with someone where they have been open with you and share something that maybe was painful for them, an experience that they went through, whether at work or in their personal lives. I know as women, we talk at times when we get together about perhaps having a miscarriage or going through trouble in your marriage or having trouble with one of your children or siblings, something like that, that is personal. You feel closer to that person. You see them as a human being. And similarly, when you go there, of course, it has to be appropriate. It has to be part of the conversation. It can't be like you're dropping a bomb completely out of context. But if it's within the conversation that you're having as you get to know someone, it truly opens your heart up to that person when you see them being vulnerable with you. And that speaks volumes to how they feel when they're with you, because that means that they feel safe to share this with you. And that deepens your connection. And as you deepen your connections in this way, you also are building your allies at work. You're building your mentors and your sponsors at work, which are required in order for us to have the influence and the impact that we want to have within our roles. And so vulnerability is that fear that we're going to be attacked or that somebody's going to harm us if they know this fact about us. And indeed, it is that fact about you that would help you connect with the people that you're there to serve and influence, and that will help you increase your impact as you become more authentic. Vulnerability and authenticity go hand in hand. The more vulnerable you are with yourself, the more authentic you become, and the more real you become to the people that you are interacting with, the people in your centers of influence or your sphere of care, as Simon Sinek calls it. That's the value of vulnerability. So I want to ask you, as you listen to this video, how would you rate yourself when it comes to being vulnerable in your relationships on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being zero vulnerability, 10 being I am completely open, I am an open book, I can show vulnerability, no problem. Where do you stand in that scale? I have to say, for me, in my personal relationships, it's such a crunchy thing for me still, right? This is me being honest with you. I have to feel very safe to be vulnerable. And I'm very expressive. So I do share how I feel. And I would say that I'm probably in that scale around a 5 in my personal life. However, when it comes to my career and vulnerability, I would say that I'm about an 8. I don't have an issue sharing my stories of where I come from, the struggles that I've endured, what it's taken me to get to where I am now that I'm a leadership coach, career strategist, transformational speaker, and author. I believe that that has been something that I've embraced because I've learned and experienced that when I do share my stories authentically with my audiences, when I go to speak at companies, I'm launching my book club, with a new company coming up this month, that when I share vulnerably, the audience and I connect on a much deeper level. And that to me is priceless, because then once they're open and connected to me, then they're ready to listen and ready to absorb what I'm going to share with them during my training. So I'm going to invite you to explore where you are with your vulnerability and to see if there's room for improvement. If you are already on your path to becoming more vulnerable and authentic, because the two go hand in hand, then I want to commend you for that. If you haven't really thought about it and haven't questioned how vulnerable you are showing up to your relationships personally and professionally, then I invite you to ponder this and perhaps take one small step to being a bit more open and to share more of who you are with your colleagues, with your manager, so they can get to know you better professionally and personally in a professional way, if that makes sense, and so that you can deepen your connections with them. And in the end result is that your relationships will be more enjoyable and more meaningful. And there's nothing wrong with that. So if this topic resonates with you, if this is something that lands for you in any way, leave me a comment or a message. Let me know how you're going to use your vulnerability in your work and in your personal lives to get yourself a little closer to a deeper connection with the people that you care about, including your team. And if you want to connect with me, if you want to bring me into your company to do a transformational talk about these qualities that we've been covering, that were also showcased in my book, Healing Leadership, my #1 bestseller, then by all means, contact me. Let's get together at callwithginny.com. I would love to support you and your firm and your leaders and help them not only learn about these qualities, these 21 qualities that our leaders need to lead powerfully and empower their people, but also if you want to understand how to apply these concepts. It's one thing for us to talk about these And cognitively, we understand the qualities. It's another thing to live these qualities and to show up to your role as a leader with these qualities. And it's really hard to implement these in isolation when you have zero guidance, zero support. And that's why we build this community of empowering and inspiring leaders, lifting each other and helping each other reach our full potential. You can always find me at callwithginny.com. And if you haven't picked up your Healing Leadership book, you can go to my website and you can find it at executivebound.com. I'll see you soon.